Welcome back, VA users. Into the previous session, we have gone through about the account localization. So in this video, we are going to cover how we can set up the account localization. So as mentioned previously, that it can be set it up by two ways. First is you would be able to download your standard accounting package that contains the default rules provided by Vienna Advantage. The another way out is you would be able to set it up manually into the system. As the account localization contains various masters involved, we have gone through into the previous video that the posting doc types, the entities, you just need to set it up first into the VA system, and thereafter you would be able to define the accounting rules at the level of the account localization. So we are going to cover today how we can set up the new rules. We are going to cover how we can utilize the standard accounting package that is provided by Vienna Advantage. So I'm at my ABC admin screen. So this is the tenant we had created previously. Now in this tenant, there is no setup available. So now we are going to make the setup using the standard account localization and the standard accounting package that is provided by Vienna Advantage. So let's log in into the VA system and we'll see how we can download. And let me log in with this ABC admin, and thereafter you would be able to see the market here. Now move on to the market, and then you just need to search standard accounts. So I will say standard, and here I would be able to see the standard accounting package which is installed in my database. The installed version is 1.0.9.0, and that is the latest version. Okay, so if it is not installed, then you would be able to ask your ERP administrator to install this module, so that you need not to generate the accounting rules from the scratch, since most of the accounting rules are available in this particular package, and thereafter we just need to do a certain modification as per our region, and we would be able to utilize all the rules that are available in this standard accounting package. So let's move on, and we'll see how we would be able to set up all these things. So as I have mentioned, that at the level of the account localization, I would have all the rules, and by default there is a US account localization I have available that comes from the standard accounting package, and thereafter I would have all the rules, and all these are maintained at the level of the system. So at the level of the system, that's why all would come into the read-only mode. I'm not going to make any changes at this particular level. How to utilize all these rules into the ABC tenant, I would show you in this, and thereafter we'll create a new account localization and we'll set a few things, and thereafter we would be able to see whether are the new rules, how the new rules would be set it up. Okay, now that's the account localization. So it is installed now into the VA system. Now let's move on, and we just need to first ensure whether the chart of account is installed or not installed. So we just open the chart of accounts window, and into the chart of accounts you just need to check whether all the ledger codes are available or not. So if your chart of account is imported, it is already imported, but in case it is not imported at your link, then you would be able to refer our import chart of account video that is available at our channel, and you can go through with that particular video, and you would be able to import your chart of account. So the Vienna Advantage into the directory already provided the chart of account template. There you would be able to set your chart of account template, and based on that template you would be able to import. Okay, so in my database it is already available, so that's fine for me. Now the next step is to link our account localization with the accounting book or with the accounting schema. So at the level of the accounting schema, we just need to come at the bottom, and there is account localization drop down. We just need to link this account localization here, and we'll say save. The another part of it that you just need to ensure is at the level of the accounting schema there would be account type element, okay, and with this element you just need to link your chart of account and a default chart of account value, and you must have to define the general ledgers, okay. So here we have already defined general ledgers. How all this stuff needs to be done into the VA system we have already covered in our video, that is accounting schema setup. If you haven't gone through with that particular video, I would request you to go through with that video, and you would be able to see that how you would be able to set up the accounting schema. Once the accounting schema is set it up, thereafter the next step is you just need to move on to the COA form. Since I had the default chart of account of Vienna Advantage, due to that I won't figure out any kind of problem. But again, before opening this form, I would request you just need to log in into the system administrator, and at the level of the system tenant open your account default window. So let's open my default window, so my account default window, and here you would be able to see the search key, okay. So whichever the chart of account ledger code you want to link with the default code, you just have to link. Since my chart of account code is same, so if I will copy this and I will go to the chart of account window, I would be able to see that, okay. So if I will come here and I will see what's basically this codes represents, so you would be able to see it represents a petty cash. Similarly, if I went through with some others, so let's say petty cash in transfer, I will copy and I will see here, and you would be able to see it as a petty cash in transfer. So my recommendation is right ledger code to be linked with the right default, okay. So once it is done, thereafter you just need to open the COA form, and then you just need to click on this particular button, select your accounting schema, and as a result you would be able to see your chart of account and your account localization, since we did this setting at the level of the accounting schema. Now you need not to do anything special here, you just need to say auto link, and once you will click on this particular button, at the background a process would be run by the system, and system will search and matches the ledger code of the chart of account with the accounting default, and based on that the system do the linkage at this particular level. So once it is done, you just need to refresh, and thereafter you would be able to see your default codes gets linked by the VA system automatically. There might be a possibility for certain ledger codes which are not linked, you would be able to link those here directly. I'm not going to link here, but since it will take a little time, but if you want to link, you just click and you just need to select this, and you need to select your ledger code, save it, and that's okay, and say okay. So in that way you would be able to link it up. So once it is done, thereafter we need to say okay, and as a result of this you will come to the accounting schema, and at the level of the accounting schema default you would be able to see the auto linkage would happen. Apart from that, now the question is how you would be able to link all these ledger codes with the masters that you have imported, okay, since that there might be a possibility that you are delivering the VA system module by module implementation, and the accounting module is the last module that you are implementing. Now there would be various masters across the system available. So first thing is, when you are doing the auto linkage, the system used to take a little time, okay. So when you select this and when you say auto linkage, so based on to the number of the masters, there would the system would take a little time, and based on that the linkages would happens automatically, okay. In case if the linkage is not happen properly, or if you haven't binded the right ledger codes, and your linkage would not happen at the level of the accounting schema default properly, then you would be able to make the changes at this particular place, and then you move on to the accounting schema header, and thereafter you need to say process now. So once the process now would run, it will link all these default codes with all the master windows, and as a result of that you would be able to see that at the level of the cash book, the charges, the system generated all these. Okay, so it is generated by the system. Similarly, if you move on to a bank, the charges, the business partner groups, so you would be able to see all these linkages. Okay, so in this way you would be able to set it up. Okay, now the question is, you want to maintain at the level of the product category a different set of codes, and at the level of the business partner group you want to maintain a different set of code. So for achieving that, you just need to open the product category, and you just need to move on here, and thereafter move on to the account default, and whichever the ledger code you want to change you would be able to do so. Let's suppose if I want to change here a ledger code for the trade revenue, I would be able to do so. So I would come here, I will come here, and I would change this. Okay, so I will select any one of them, I will save and then say okay. As a result to that, what happens, the system links that particular ledger code. Once at the level of the product category or at the level of the business partner group you have did all these changes, then you just need to move on at the product category header and say process. So once you process, then whichever the product that are assigned to this product category, as a result to that the system will update all those products that comes under this product category with the default codes which you have mentioned here. Okay, so that is the one way out. So once it is done, thereafter the next step is you just need to make sure that all the posting doc types are linked with your document types. So this is going to be the last step. So once I will move on to the doc type, I just need to make sure that my posting doc type is linked or not. So if the posting code is linked or a search key, is linked here in such a format. Now this format represents that the base doc type represents the base doc type code. So it used to say APC. In that case, if the posting doc type is not linked, then it is all well. The system again post the transactions accordingly. But if you find out or figure out that this might not work, then you just need to delete this, and you would be able to link your AP invoice. So it is a AP credit memo. So it is not AP invoice, I would say it is a AP credit memo. So I would link here, and thereafter similarly it is AP invoice, then API. If I figure out that this code won't work or it is not driving the right results, I would be directly able to link my posting doc type. So in this way I just need to link one by one all the posting doc types here with the document types. If the right ledger code posting code is linked, then it is all well. Okay, now let's move on to the one of the transactions, and we'll try to do some postings, and then we'll see whether the system drives the right results or not. So let's say I have a AR invoice or the customer invoice. So I would open this. Let me see whether there is any default transaction is available. So there is no transaction available, so I would select here AR invoice, and I would come here and I will select, let's say, the BR is Infotek. My price list is INR sales price list. My payment term is already available. The check is all well, and I would save this. Then I would move on to the invoice line, and I will say new record. Either I will select a product or a charge. So let me select a charge. So vehicle expenses, and then I will move on to the price, say 100. If there is any text, I would be able to select the text. So let me select the text as GST 5%, and then my total is going to be 105. Now the review posting here available, which represents that you can test what would be the accounting consequences of this transaction. So it helps us before processing the transaction or before completing the transaction. I would be able to check whether the right accounting would come or not for this particular transaction. So you would be able to see that the flop period is mandatory and there is nothing happened here. So the another thing that we just need to make sure and or ensure whether the July month, okay, so is opened or not. So we'll move on to the period group. Not the period group, that is period control or calendar year period. So we'll move on here, we'll move on to this, and thereafter we'll see 23 and 24 and move on here, and then July. So we will move on to the period control, and you can see the control is never open. So we'll open all these controls. So I would select here all these and say okay. So in case if you want to learn more about the calendar year period or the period control, you would be able to check my video for the fiscal year setup or the financial year setup is already available at our channel. So you would be able to check it up, how we can set up the new calendars, how we would be able to set up the new year, and how we would be able to create the periods or open or close the periods. So all the details are provided in my fiscal year setup video. Okay, so once it is done, let's move on again and we'll try the review postings. So fact line is not created against posting doc type this. Master entity is says to be asset. So the master entity says to be asset, and accumulation assets would be needed. Okay, so we'll move on and we'll see why this issue is coming. So as a result, the first way out of debugging it out is basically we just move on here and we'll say okay, this is the posting doc type. So I would say okay, this, save it. Thereafter I will close this, and the second point is to verify whether I do have the right ledger codes linked or not. So I will move on to the accounting default of this, and all the right ledger codes are binded here. So that is again all well. The next step is I would see my next master entity, that is the charge, and we just need to make sure whether the accounting defaults are linked or not linked. So here even my accounting defaults are all linked. So everything is well. In terms of the setting, everything is well, but still the system is not driving the results, since when I click onto the review posting, there would be a certain things the system says, and there is no posting is happening presently. Okay, so what I will do, I will log in with my system administrator and I will verify my rules. So let me move here and we'll log in with the super user. So normally the users doesn't have the access of the super user, so you must have to convey to your ERP administrator. So let me open this, and or this is the responsibility of the implementation team, right? So I would move on to the AR invoice. So this is the AR invoice. Then I would verify one by one. So all the tables are binded properly, my entities are all well. Then I would move on to the posting logic, and I will see, since there are certain issues that the system is driving based on assets. So for the timing, I'm deactivating all these assets one. So however, if the asset module is implemented, we just need to ensure that all these rules would work. Okay, so I would save this, and thereafter I will move back and I will try to review. So now you would be able to see that the system says this account receivable trade is getting debited. My tax due is 2.5 since my GST 5% is divided into IGST and SGST, and my charge revenue is 100. So this is the way you would be able to post the transaction. So let me post this transaction. I will process this, and thereafter I would be able to post this transaction. So that is how you would be able to check, or you would be able to set up the posting rules that are available or provided by the Vienna Advantage. Okay, now there is another question is, if I want to set up a certain account localization at my level, so you would be able to do so. So either you want to generate that into the system administrator, that is up to you, or you want to generate it at the level of this. So that all depends on you. Now if I want to generate a rule, then the important part of it, I just need to be aware of what's basically the journal accounting consequences. If I will say at the level of the AR invoice, I need to post a certain transaction. So normally my transaction used to say is that the sundry debtors debit or the account receivable trades are debit, and credit would be your charge revenue, that can be rent, or that can be a certain product or a trade revenue. So I just need to be ensure that I would be aware about a basic concept, that what would be the logical postings uh, at the level of a certain transaction. So if I'm aware of that particular logical entries, then what I can do, I can move on to the account localization, and I would be able to define my account localization. Since I do have the US account localization, so let's suppose I'm doing for India. So India accounts localization. Now, this way I would be able to define my new account localization. Then I would move on to the posting rules, and then the posting doc type I would be able to select. If the posting doc type is not available, then you just need to come at the level of the posting doc type, give the name and give the code. Now the code you would be able to figure out from the document type by zooming to your document base type, and from there you would be able to identify. Okay, so once it is done, thereafter you just need to move on and select that you are creating for which particular posting doc type, which is going to be the screen. So my screen is invoice customer, and based on that your date would be filtered. Your on which date you want to post, you will say post, and the receivable accounts sign represents that the negative figures you want to treat as positive, and the reference posting rule represents that the previous rule which you have prepared, and you want to utilize that particular rules. And once you will select something here, then rest of the tabs would be read only. So once it is done, then you just need to move on to the posting tab, and you need to ensure that which particular tab you want to utilize. So if you want to utilize, I just want to utilize the invoice. So my table is this. I want to pick certain values from the invoice line, and then I will select this. Then I want to use the invoice tax as well, so I will select this. So once it is done, as a result you would be able to see your most of the posting entities would be given by the system, but there are certain other entities would be there. So here you have the amount entity, budget entity, cost entity. So majorly we use amount, cost and the quantity entities. Okay, so for the amount entity, at the level of the invoice, grand total to be picked as my account receivables. So I will say C invoice, and this is going to be the column grand total. So it is the grand total. Then we'll save this. The another thing in terms of the amount entity, what I want to utilize is basically the line amount. So I would come here and I will say invoice line, and the invoice, so my next is the line net amount. So the line net amounts gives the line amount excluding taxes. Now the third one which I want to utilize is the tax. So it is going to be the invoice tax. I would select this and I would say tax amount. Now my posting entities are done or available within while creating the rules. Now the important part of it is, if you are utilizing if you are creating the rules for the material management windows where the product would be there is no amount entities available like shipment, material receipt, vendor return, customer return, physical inventory, internal use inventory. When these are not available, when the amount is not available, in that case you just need to use cost and the quantity entities. So you can refer the previous account localization, and you would be able to analyze, and based on that you would be able to generate your rules. Okay, now let's move on to the posting logic. And here at the level of the posting logic, I just need to select the entity, Okay, so my entity is basically the customer master. Okay. So you would be able to define your entities at the level of the accounts entity. So if there is no entity exists, then you say new record, you would give the name to the entity, select your screen based on tables. If the entity is a master entity, means the entity that contains the accounting default tab, then you just need to select the accounting default and relate it to as well. Okay, so if you can move on to this place, you would be able to see which is the account default tab. So these are the master entities. Okay, and there are certain force entities where we just need to place the conditions. Okay, so these two kinds of entities you would be able to create and later utilize while creating the rules. So once it is done, let's move on since it is already existing here. So my account default, if the account defaults are not available, then you just need to move on to the account defaults and you need to create all these account defaults. Okay, now once it is done, thereafter I just need to select the system filters based on to the entity selected. So my entity says the account receivable trade, the posting side is going to be debit since I know the receivable used to be debit. Then the grand total, that is including the tax value, then it is going to be group by entity, and then it is posting type actual. So I would save this. The next rule says it is basically comes from the charges. Let's suppose it is going to be a charge revenue, the posting side is going to be credit, then my line net amount, then consolidated by group by entity, posting type is actual. My second rule is done. The third rule says this comes from product, it is going to be trade revenue. So I would select this and I will say it is going to be credit, the line amount, and then group by entity, posting type actuals, then save this. The last one is the tax. So I would say a tax rate, and it is going to be tax due, it is going to be credit again, it is invoice tax, consolidation by this. Now all these are all done. Okay, so normally it used to be in this way. Now the question is, either I do have the charge or I do have the revenue. Now how the system decides which ledger codes to be picked up? So in that case we would be able to push the conditions. For the charge revenue, I want to push the conditions that my, if in case any of the entity condition is not coming, so here one of the important thing I just want to share with you guys. You just need to move on to the posting entity, and then you just need to link that entity by selecting, let's say, master entity or forced entity. You just need to select that particular entity here, and thereafter you would be able to see all those conditions into the condition tab. So if I want to generate this condition that the charges should post, then I would say invoice line charge equal is not null, and in this case my product is not null. Okay, so you would be able to see I have defined the conditions accordingly. Okay, in case it is one-on-one, then you need not to define. I know that the receivables always gets debit and I have only these four rules I just want to utilize, so in that case I need not to do anything. Now once the new localization is generated, then again you just need to follow this step, since I have already binded my US account localization. So in that case you just need to come here and you will choose this, and accordingly you would able to process all those steps, and thereafter you would be able to do the transaction. So this is the way how you would be able to do all these transactions, how and then how to post these transactions, and in this way how you would be able to define your rules. So I hope this will give you an inside glance how the system used to post all these transactions, and thereafter at the level of the posting, what the system is validating, it is not only validating the calendar year period, it is also validating your currency, it is also checking your currency conversions, the unit of measurement conversions, the taxes, everything would be checked up by the system, and this is one of the way how you would be able to define your accounting rules. So if I would say you are getting the freedom now, since you would be able to define everything yourself. Now, one of the struggle that I faced in my career is basically when you are implementing an ERP. At that moment of time, it is always a hurdle. If some new requirement into the different region of the world comes, I won't be able to do without doing any development. Okay. Now with the VA system, you would be able to do it very easily. The VA system is providing all the standard accounting package as well, so you need not to spend much time to kept on creating. Instead, you would modify the rules based on your requirements, place the conditions. So I hope this video will be useful for you guys, and you would be able to set up the account localization. In case if you figure out any kind of problem, uh, put your questions, and thereafter we'll discuss about further details on defining the account localization rules. I hope this video will be beneficial for you guys. If you like the content, if you like the videos and it helps you a little bit, I would request you to subscribe our channel, and I would request that you will share this video with your friends as well, so that they will gain the knowledge how to set up the account localization rules into the VA system. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.